Hey everyone, this is SM Pratt, and it's time for the April 2025 Patreon exclusive Q&A video round 2. Actually recording this on Easter Sunday for anyone who celebrates that holiday. I am not because of inclement weather. It's all been canceled, so I'm here now answering questions on time actually. So before we get into it, update on consignments. The next block should start hopefully in a week very soon. If you want to get anything in for May or later on in May, I think is when I'll try to shoot for the next auction. This month is probably going to be the largest one I've ever done, so that'll be exciting. Feel free to check it out. There's going to be a ton of cards in there. Oh yeah, also, if anybody wants to buy one of these poncho boxes, I forgot to do it in the beginning of the video, so I think maybe 5 of you saw it at the end. I do have a poncho Picados and a Vulpex one as well, and you can always message me about some of the stuff I have on eBay. Just trying to remember to remind myself and remind you guys that, you know, doing things through Patreon is a lot easier and smoother. So there we go. We'll go ahead and get started here with the first question with Danny Heatley, never forget 1507, saying, "Hey Scott, I had a question, wanted to hear your thoughts on the latest artist event in China with Himeno. If you didn't know, she had a ticketed event and did some of the craziest sketches on Pokemon cards I've seen. Does Pokemon generally bend the rules or allow older artists to sign and sketch freely? Or are these just rare occurrences? I know she won't be signing publicly for Cardmania in Malaysia, since that's what she was stated to organizers, but she is signing privately after the event for staff. Just want to hear your thoughts to see if you think TPCI is becoming more allowing and lenient with rules, or are exceptions being made with her long history of Pokemon? Thanks." So I think the best way to address a lot of this signing stuff is first that it's not a law. And a lot of what was true, you know, years ago just really doesn't matter anymore. Ultimately, it's whatever Pokemon decides. And just like an example of this event or a few others I know about in China as well, they, for some reason, are able to do more. I could go out on a very risky limb and say maybe there's like an Eastern preference or something like that. So I really don't know, because I know people who, you know, organize a lot of these events and they were told certain things and they thought they had a loyalty agreement, and it all just disappeared. And I don't mean just like, you know, the most recent, the past couple of years. I know people going back now like almost 10 years who had a great gig set up and it all just vanished and no contact anymore. So I'm just really trying to paint the picture here that you can't rely on pretty much anything that happens at all. And it's almost like what's happening now in the market as well. It's like what you thought were the reasons why people enjoyed collecting may not be entirely true. So that's what you're experiencing with signings. I did not hear about the Himeno one, but I don't have my ear as close to the ground like I used to with signings. I used to be really tapped in. That was like a main artery for a long time. But I just got this. I can't deal with the extreme reactions. Like the stock market right now, if it was like that all the time, I'd just cash out and be like, it's too rich for me, you know? This is like crypto. You know, we're one day everything makes sense over here, and the next day it's like she's doing amazing sketches, or like one day it's we can't do it on cards. Next day we can sign cards, you know, or maybe staff gets them. I've heard every scenario at this point that I'm just not surprised, I guess, is where I land. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say besides that. Maybe Misery and Company, that they are doing more of these in China. You know, I just did a call recently with that potential investment fund, and that was one of the ideas pitched, is like, hey, maybe go to one of these signings in China, you know, just get as many signatures as you can, because right now that's just the main opportunity, and that could be fleeting. You know, it could be one of those, like, it could be like literally a legendary Pokemon appearance in the wild. You know, it's something that I don't think any of this is consistent as we've experienced, and I can't really add much definitive because there isn't much definitive happening. I don't know anything beyond the first point of it's just not a law. It's whatever Pokemon decides, and they do make exceptions for people. Maybe money is one of those elements. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes, but all of it we're not privy to. This is just guesswork. And even then, I know people who did, we probably both do, people who did everything right. They bent the knee entirely, bowed as low to the ground as they could to Japan, and there wasn't reciprocity. You know, they were loyal to all the artists. They did everything for them. They didn't make a single dime out of these events, and you know, they're left just waiting for Pokemon's beck and call. So there is no law here, and I would go even further. There really isn't much loyalty. I don't know the reasons for why these Chinese events are working the way they are right now. It feels very reminiscent of like 2016, 17, 18, you know, when Arita really started kicking off with that stuff. And it was just a very good time and easy because of the balance of the market. There weren't too many people, but back then it was very open ended. You know, you can get whatever signed. Probably to a fault. At some, I know some of those events early on, like Ocala, was pretty brutal for him, but ultimately it was very open ended. These are more similar to that, but yeah, I feel like I've ranted enough for the first question, but that's really it. Is that it's not a law. They can make exceptions for people, and no one can tell you. I could combine all forces with all the people, you know, who I know some people who have been working as TOs for 2 decades, and they decided to rearrange recently, and that's it. That's the end of the relationship. It's wild. It's like dating a celebrity with Pokemon. Like, that's what it's like. You find out that they're cheating on you from like BuzzFeed or TMZ. You're like, God, like, what'd I do? Like, it's just, that's how it is with Pokemon. Like, it's an abusive relationship. So there you go. Great. I know you were at the last of the Q&A and I did early, so you're the opener this time. All right, moving along, we have Cousin Vinny. That's, what is the difference in the fundamentals of exposure and interest resulting from a major hobby influencer giving exposure for vintage niche cards versus the price increasing on its own? You touched on this in the first Q&A this month, and I have wondered for Not Awake, Half-Deck exclusive Trainer Mag promos, and some of my historic favorites, and are fairly consistent, but what if they had exposure of something like PokeRev? As always, thanks for the insight. Steve looks backwards. Yeah, that's a really good topic. And honestly, that's a great thought experiment, because where I go to immediately with a lot of those cards is that exposure is really truly what they're missing. It's not some type of sales pitch. Like, if you just had me on PokeRev's channel saying, yeah, this is why these cards are cool, and then they edit my long-winded ranting self into like something more digestible, very, you know, nice and neat, that's it. Because it's like you're just telling people why the cards are cool, and it's a statement of facts. It's not like you're trying to sell to anyone. It's like, yeah, this is why it's magical, this is why it's fun. You know, it's because these cards are exclusive. It's so cool and quaint how they tie into certain things, or, you know, they have unique art and they're released this way, etc. Like, that's it. That's all it is. It's not like you're like, man, this is the best investment opportunity. I think that's the distinction there, is that if you're just presenting why you think the cards are cool or the release information, to me, that's as organic as it gets. It's just an issue of how far is that beacon, you know, broadcast, where that's what you're up against right now, where everybody's talking about the same thing over and over. The market is being traded so much now on sentiment. It's not being traded on fundamentals anymore. I mean, of course, those people still exist, like the ones who are in the cave dwellers, you know, those type of people. But overall, there's just it's so much sentiment trading right now. So anyway, I think that's the distinction that I go to immediately, is that there are cards like some of the ones you mentioned, like Masaki's come to mind as well, where if you just say, yeah, these are how they release, they tie into the game, and if you fancy that up and just say like, yeah, these, remember when you traded with your friends in link cables? Well, they have cards that do that. You know, that's how they release. If you package that right on the right channel, done. And I think it's just an appropriate way of showing what these cards have to offer. Where I think the problem with today, what I'm seeing is over and over and over, same thing again and again and again. I'm to the point now where I just dislike the modern collecting culture, or whatever you want to say, whatever's happening. Like when I see it on my TikTok, I either swipe it away or I say I'm not interested, because I don't want it in my feed. I don't want to see some guy, like I just saw one that was like, guy steals Charizard at something, and I'm like, I don't want to know about any of this stuff. So there's way too much of that and too little of this, like too little of the slightly deeper dives. And yeah, I just think it is an exposure issue. I think that when something increases on its own, I don't know how you categorize that anymore, because it's not a binary of like everything's in a vacuum. As much as we talk about how vintage cards or certain vintage cards could benefit from exposure, it's not like they have zero exposure. You know, maybe PCL's still in the closet, but a lot of these cards are still getting some type of circulation to some degree. So it's hard to just say on their own, because there's people talking about them ultimately at the end of the day. So yeah, it's just that there's so much noise right now with the same thing happening. The same like activity in modern is just everywhere. It's all over the place. So yeah, I think if I could tailor make it where you have like PokeRev's channel showing these cards, I think it would definitely have an immediate effect. And you saw it in the past before. I remember when Unlisted Leaf did that thing with the Festa card from 2016. A lot of people were upset because they blamed him, and he got so much unnecessary hate from it. They're like, it's all his fault, whatever. I'm like, guys, this only works because the card has fundamentals. You know, it's not like today where the stuff that goes on today wouldn't last back then. It just wouldn't have been possible. But that card was actually more scarce. It had all the stars on it. Its 20th anniversary, and here we are today. Unlisted Leafs, like hype price everyone was whining about was like $400. Like, yeah, find me a person who wouldn't buy the 2016 Festa today at $400. Who's that person? Like, that's nobody. So anyway, that I think there's always a balance there of like hype versus exposure. You know, I don't think it's hype necessarily just to state and to cleanly state, you know, in a nice, digestible way with someone who knows how to edit and do things like that and make it look pretty. And just explain why Misaki cards are special, why fan club cards are special, why not await cards are special, and so on. I think that's just good advertisement. And yeah, the right channel can move that. I don't think anything's wrong with that. I think a lot of these cards just lack exposure because, again, the noise cycle is just dominated by that same stuff. Like, all I see are openings and like high energy talking all the time, no downtime. Even that pause I just took there doesn't exist in the stuff that you see. Constant noise, constant trying to get you to buy, constantly like, let's get it to 25, let's get it to 2,500, let's do this, buy this, you get this right now, special for the next 30 minutes, you buy this. It's like that's what it is. So how do you explain nuance in that environment? So anyway, I could go on forever. I don't even know if I'm answering your question, but you just great that can honestly be its own video. All right, next up we have Paul K, who says, hey Scott, in regards to your Pokemon purchases since the beginning of 2024 to now, what are some purchases you wish you bought more? Also, what are some purchases you wish you bought less? Thanks for all you do. Also, another good question. So really, I don't think there's anything I wish I would have bought less because I'm not buying too aggressively right now. So I can't think of anything that I would chop off. Maybe if I could make a trade, I would slide like some of my Japanese modern stuff to English, just because English is just on fire. But at the same time, why I'm not doing as much English because I don't enjoy it as much. I don't like feeling like you're being taken advantage of. You know, like with the distributor stuff that's going on, it was $79 locked in for years. For years. That's what I was paying for years on end. And now it's like $200. Like, what? I even understand, like, okay, 79 to 100, you know, like somewhere in there, 100-ish or something. But $200, like, what? It just, I don't like it. It's gone beyond the enjoyment level. So anyway, that would probably be the only trade that comes to mind from a purely logical video game, pragmatic scenario where there's no emotions involved. That would probably be the move. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything I would have bought more of. I mean, we could always fictionalize and say, yeah, I should have bought more Mario Pikachus, especially when they were only $50 a piece, especially when some of my family members were in Japan. I told them to buy them and they bought the cookie box instead. Yeah, we could go back in time and woulda, coulda, shoulda. But in the past year-ish, that's probably the only big practical move. If I shifted some of the Japanese stuff for modern English, but I just don't like it. That's really what it comes down to. Not even the actual cards or anything, just from beginning to end, before it's even on the shelves. Distributor pricing, all the games they play in the US, like my distributor price in Japan has gone up maybe marginally, like to a point where it's so insignificant that if I go look at my invoices, I can't tell you. Like if you remove the dates from my invoices from the past 10 or so years from Japan, I couldn't tell you which one's the one I'm buying now versus like 5 years ago, because the prices are basically the same, and maybe part of that's exchange rate, but the point remains that they're not doing this. Like, it just feels so sleazy. You can probably watch old videos where I'm saying the same thing, where English distributors are just, let's make a deal. I just don't like that stuff. It's not my cup of tea. But yeah, that would probably be it. Just, of course, always pontificating unnecessarily. And I would probably make that move from a pragmatic perspective, but it would not be enjoyable, which is why I didn't do it. I could probably really find a niche, and do what Rudy's doing and pump it on through, and I'm sure outsource it and make more money or whatever. It's just not enjoyable. My focus is, more on time. That's why, to the other part of your question, I don't think of anything that I bought, one bought. Even things that aren't big money makers, I don't care. I'm not buying. When I was buying like a Wild Man in 2016 till last couple of years, it's just, even then, I don't think there's anything I regret buying. It just takes so long to move everything. So the woulda, coulda, shoulda is endless though, and I think that's the only thing I could think of is just shifting some Japanese modern to English, and of course giving you way too much unnecessary dialogue about why I didn't do that. All right, next up we have Bob the Builder, who says, do you think PSA is keeping grading prices high on purpose because they think it's more profitable doing higher margin, lower volume? I feel like they're making an excuse to keep demand high and want to be known as a higher brand. I feel like they can easily hire more graders because because CGC did when they had a big spike in demand. Yeah, so they've been doing that for a while. And also, by the way, nice, pleasantly surprising, legitimate question by Bob the Builder. They've been doing this for a while by adding people. They do throttle it. 2020 and 21 was a huge uptick, and that took a long time to fill. But now we're past that, and I do think there's something to what you're saying. I'll go into depth where it's more appropriate in the MMR and rant a long time about this. But in short, PSA already has the volume. They don't need to play the volume game anymore. So they're playing the margin game. And it makes sense. Like, why? You already have the market. Go look at their numbers. It's not even close, to the next person. So they don't need any more volume. So since they already have that to the point where they can't really keep up with it, it's like, yeah, they're just going to increase the margin, and it's going to work because you need to go through them. You're just going to the problem I have, and I don't enjoy saying this, I don't enjoy that you really have, it's almost like you feel like you're handcuffed because there just isn't a viable option, at least for someone like me who's dealing with speaking of margin, higher margin items, typically higher value items. You're just stuck. Like, you have no other choice because you're either leaving money on the table by going with another company, unless there's some caveat there, maybe PSA 9, another company, 10 or something, something like that I get. But ultimately, in general, you're leaving money on the table by not getting maximum value. And it's such a crazy, like, only one option right now. It's wild. I was just talking about this morning with somebody. Yeah, I talked about Pokemon on Easter Sunday, and they were like, man, I remember when Beckett was like a competitor, and it's like, you don't even hear about Beckett now, And if I had like another life in me, an extra life or an extra person, I could do a little Scyther double team or something, I would genuinely start up another company, a grading company, because I know the people who could make it happen. It's such a headache, such a stress. But yeah, this is a big opportunity right now for another company to come in. It's really hard to develop that inertia. Too many people want to do it too quickly. So I think that's why PSA remains the way they are. I don't know. I think the intentional things they're doing are definitely shooting for margin because they have the volume. But other than that, I don't really know. They're in such a luxury position, kind of like Pokemon themselves, where the demand just naturally comes to them at this point. So what do they have to do? They just have to maintain and keep doing what they're doing. And yeah, it's I don't know what word to use. Depressing, disappointing, difficult, any other D word we think of. It's just not a good time for a customer because you have to go through, for a lot of these cards, the higher value cards at least, you have to go through them. And yeah, it's $19 now for bulk? Like, come on. That's when I started grading, $15 was the regular service. My first orders were like I didn't even know about bulk grading for the first couple of years. I only sent it in regular. And I didn't find out until they adjusted one of my things. I was like, oh, that's nice. You guys giving me this cheaper option. I was like, oh, you can send it in bulk. So I was paying $15 a piece, and that was the regular service. They would get done in like 2 weeks back then. You send it in, it's back at your house within the month. So yeah, it's wild. But anyway, that's what I got. I'll go way into depth on it in the MMR. I have a ton of notes already written down about what's going on, and I'll pontificate further about how I do think it's going to further cement the competition. Whether it's intentional or not, what PSA is doing is really smart from a competitive perspective because it forces you to send your cheaper cards to other companies. That's going to create brand reputation, etc. You see where I'm going, and we've talked about this before. So yeah, whether it's intentional or not, it's happening, and I'll get way into it in the MMR. Great question, by the way, Bob. We've had some just killer questions here. This first four. All right, next up we have Gopher, who says, I grew up collecting during the EX and Level X eras. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how these eras are currently viewed in both English and Japanese markets. Do you think many collectors who grew up with these sets have already returned to the hobby, like we've seen with WotC generation, or do you anticipate a larger wave of interest from the age group in the coming years? So EX has had more lately, for sure. Like, there's more people collecting EX. You guys are just in my head, because this is another MMR note that I already have typed in. Right now, what you're experiencing with EX, I think, is more of a scarcity to demand thing. And with EX, it can't be overstated that it's probably the scarcest era of Pokemon. Even flirting with Level X as well, that's like the low point. You had WotC going up and then started to nosedive after E-Series, and that's why it sold. And then really low with EX, coming up with Level X a bit, and you start to see more with the full arts and everything later on. But yeah, I think that you have people already back there's no like full participation answer. I would just say where you are now with EX is like a lifetime of difference from where it used to be even 5 years ago. For example, during 2020, EX didn't do anything. It was just sitting there. And I heard people were like doing the thing where you like the meme where you're poking it with a stick, like do something. Because it just sat there. It really didn't move that much. Of course, I'm sure someone will be like, well, this card went up. But overall, it did not track it with WotC, especially Diamond and Pearl. Diamond and Pearl definitely did. And I would even go further. I'm trying to stay this as objectively as possible because my nostalgia is for WotC, but I think EX has the most going for it. They've got so much going on with the actual EX cards. The best reverse holo by far, because it just looks like a holo, and it has a little set name there. So best reverse holo, in my opinion. You have little things like Delta going on, species, strong set identity, a lot of really strong set identities in the EX era. The EX cards, gold stars, of course, and it's scarce. That's a lot of positives. And for some reason, Diamond and Pearl is kind of like losing the Concorde. We want to step back. It's like, you know what? We got this great card EX that's so good that we brought it back today. And we've used it for a while now. But we're going to do this thing called Level X for some reason. So yeah, it's not, for some reason, it just is not as good. They basically cut some of the perks from EX and they're trying things. That was their experimental time in life, was the Level X era, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. So anyway, yeah, I don't think it's fully happening. I think right now what you're seeing is a mixture of increased demand, but more importantly on a market condition of lower scarcity, which the big question is, how does that replenish itself? Because it is a scarce era inherently. Will it act like WotC? In my opinion, I think it's one of the safest branches to go out on. WotC has a lot more supply in general. Obviously, you have things like first edition base, the bell curve, if you don't know. I said this before, where it's like first edition base set, shadowless, unlimited, jungle, fossil, and that peaks around there with rocket and stuff, and then it starts to dip down with supply, and then you end down here with, your E series, and then getting into EX, that goalie I talked about earlier. That's how WotC was. So majority of WotC is going to have more quantity out there that you'll stumble upon. I doubt you're going to see like a Team Rocket Returns box over in Japan. Where I'll still see a random WotC box. I just saw a Neo Destiny one the other day, like just on a Japanese auction. Like, I doubt you're going to see that for a lot of the EX stuff. So it's a scarce era. I think that's more of what's happening today. I don't think it's fully in motion. I don't think you're ever going to have what you have with WotC also, because I don't think you have that generational boom. Last point, I promise. I'm not going on too long, but the EX era doesn't have that like generational explosion like you did with WotC, which is also more the point why WotC had more supply, kind of like today, why we have so much, cards or product print today. It's because there's so much demand. So during that EX time, I don't think you're going to have a similar return like you would with WotC, because it's just so widespread. Such a global phenomenon. Even in Australia was doing it big with Pokemon. They were kind of like a little mini US at the time during that WotC boom. And, other countries like all of Europe, pretty much, a lot of the major countries there, it's just different. It's a different complexion. So you probably won't have the same return like you would with WotC. All right. Anyway, these are just one good question after another. All these could just be I need to get Martin in here, start cutting these up and making their own videos. All right, next up we have Chris, who says, hard question, SSB or TMB? It's a question I've gone back and forth with my whole life. Personally, I have to go TMB due to Ken Sugimori art. Also, back in the day, there was more value assigned to placement of... Oh, wait, are you asking? Back in the day... Oh, yeah, was there more value assigned to placement, or really just getting the card in any place was a feat in itself? With current prices on such amazing cards, I'd love to see the Guild S and Pratt rebuild the collection. Dude, I don't know why that makes me feel so good. She said that. Yeah, I wish I could do that. I saw my TMBs go on Heritage, and it was very bittersweet because, yeah, it's tough. It's a bittersweet thing. I had to take that deal. To give you guys some Patreon exclusive here, they sold for less than what I sold them for. So, yeah, those are some of the record deals that I still have for those cards. But yeah, it's one of those things that, I had to take that deal to the point I just made about the price point. Emotionally, it's always tough. It's always tough. When I saw those going, I'm like, I had to do it. I got to accept it. I don't want to be too therapy here, but it's just emotionally what those cards mean to me. It's just a lot. I put a lot into it. So anyway, getting back out of therapy here to normalize your question or response to your question is that, yeah, I think back in the day, the places always had somewhat of a hierarchy. 2 and 3 were mostly interchangeable. You saw it more with the Pikas. I think the Pika 3 beat out a lot of the others just because it's so cute. But with the SSB, TMB, it was more, I think, congruent. This is just speaking broadly, though. And, you know, you're talking the differences of thousands of dollars. Back then, these cards weren't going for what they're going for today. If I had to choose, sentimentally, it's SSB, but I will agree. I think TMB probably, overall, design-wise, just ever so much beats it out. Like, when you look at the TMB in person, there's like almost a 3D thing going on with the holographic part of the logo. And then you have like the executor there layered on it. And of course, like the 90s color in the background. But you get that more of that effect, where I think the SSB is a little more flat in person. So that would be my critique of having those things forever and staring at them way too often. Getting way too often. So yeah, that's probably my answer on them. I miss them all the time. That's a deal I had to take. I could not deny that deal. But yeah, I miss those cards so much. And yeah, that's probably I think the most objective way to say it is that those TMBs, they have that like 3D thing going on, but they're so good. It's like the top Mewtwo card for sure. But yeah, I'm glad you're rooting for it. Maybe one day. It's funny because I watched them, like, maybe I could buy him back, and it's just tough. I have so many things going on in my life right now that are more important, especially this past month, than Pokemon. So it's tough to make that like that justification, you know. To just be like, all right, I'm going to throw down like $150,000 on some cards, you know, on one auction or something. It's tough to justify that sometimes. So yeah, maybe one day. Anyway, really, I got to stop saying really good question, because these are all like, well, I'm getting them, you're firing the brain, the heart, everything. The whole it's a full body workout right now. Swiss says, hey Scott, do you think what we're seeing in modern English is just a representation of the wider shift in our society and how we live? I'm talking about everything being ultra optimized and ultra scrutinized. Are we living in a time where it's hard to have fun and be spontaneous, or is it just what it means to grow up and become an adult? No, what we're experiencing right now with modern is not unique to the product. It's definitely a sign of the times. You know, why we're experiencing the way we are right now, why it's booming the way it is not just because of the sets. It's not just because of the cards. You know, those are the end point. It's because of all the things happening. You know, for me, one of the things that really helps me right now is I just put my phone in the other room. And the longer I'm away from it, the better my day goes. It's almost like a mathematical equation, like a reality at this point of just further away the phone is, the better your day is going to be. So that's definitely a huge part of it. It's not just, too many people focus on the cards and see it as if that's like the reason for why it's happening. And in my experience, that's just the end point, because it's not unique to Pokemon. In those quick swipes that I do, you know, on TikTok or wherever, where people are streaming, it's Disney, it's Pokemon, it's sports, it's whatever, you know, whatever's happening. Of course, Pokemon's really popular and a global thing, but it's because of that. It's because of the live streaming, you know, and whatever website it may be. That's what it is, these components. And yeah, for sure, it's you're being conditioned. It's not just us growing up, though, you know, and becoming older boomers or whatever. It's for sure the conditioning. Even boomers deal with this. Like the stereotype of boomers on Facebook. It's like they're on all the time. I do love that. I saw this TikTok the other day that was like Gen Z person like hitting on a girl, you know, and it's like using an alt account and like whatever, hiding behind some new username, new alt account with a whatever different IP address, whatever it is. And then it's like boomer hitting on a girl that shows like their whole family in the profile picture, their full legal name. Anyway, I don't know why that came to mind, but you're getting it in your response. So yeah, that's just where we are. You know, everybody's using these devices, the internet. Younger people are a little more coy, I guess, and boomers are just shooting straight. You know, so everybody is using it, and I think it's going to be one of those where we look back 10 years from now, 20 years from now, especially phones in schools and things like that, and we're like, man, that was wild that we didn't have any rules on it. That was wild that kids are just allowed to do this. That was wild that we just let them sit in front of these devices. You know, I remember growing up, at least for me, you couldn't even play video games a day of. I played baseball growing up for a long time, and you couldn't play video games a day of. You couldn't put your arm out the window because it would mess up the whatever. You know, you couldn't watch too much TV. That's what it was back then. You know, don't sit in front of the TV too long. Where now it's just like, here's your tablet. You know, go do whatever, you know, because I got to get on my tablet, you know. So it's something that's not I don't want to go on too long. People are here for the Pokemon stonkage, but it's not unique to Pokemon at all. It's a societal thing that's happening. The product is just flowing through that societal stuff that's going on. And yeah, it's everything's so instant. It is hard to be spontaneous. It is hard to be authentic. Even me using that word, it sounds like you can't say it anymore because it's been so bastardized. So yeah, it's hard to do any of that stuff because everything is so hyper aware, self aware. Will this get me? How will this benefit me? That type of perspective is encouraged. So yeah, it's just you find peace by just, I hate to use that boomer adage, but it's true, of like, just turn off your phone. That was always the advice. Like, you're getting up, people are saying something about you, just turn off your phone. But there is truth to that. Stepping away from it, putting the other room, just being in the moment is the harder thing to do today. And so yeah, anyway, there's I don't want to go on too long about the world problems, but it's not just Pokemon. It's the product moving through all of what's happening right now. Auction Mike says, I have noticed recently the majority of Pokemon content on YouTube, what a segue, has literally become the exact same, just with a different talking head in every video. Every single video is doom, gloom, market manipulation, 151 singles. What to do next? Everyone's going to die till the world is ending. Scalper this, Scalper that. I don't know if you're familiar with George Orwell's writing in the 1940s, but he basically describes how certain words lose their meaning over time and people start to use those certain words in a broad sense to describe anything they don't like or agree with. That guy selling a card at a price I don't like, he must be a scalper. We are currently in a bull market for Pokemon cards, and nobody can shut up for 2 seconds just appreciate what it is. Man, that's it right there. Like, you summarize it right there. I recently started streaming on Whatnot. I know what you're thinking. How can I move this person from my Patreon community in the shortest amount of time? You are not the first or the last person who's on Whatnot, so don't worry. I've got people in here who do, like, insane numbers on Whatnot. Like, insane numbers. So, you're good to go, man. Short spot, but hear me out. I have tens of thousands of Japanese vintage promos, WotC, Early EX, Legend Era, etc. that I run through and sell at $1 each. I run giveaways and entice people into the stream, and I pull out my Japanese Komiya collection of about 100 different carefully curated Komiya artworks, and I do artwork appreciation. I think we need a little bit more of that in the broader hobby. Anyway, thanks for reading. I just thought I would try to share a positive experience in the hobby in case anyone else like me only saw negative, or everyone on YouTube. Much love, Mike. Yeah, let me just like riff on this for a little bit. I don't want to go too, I'm always trying to please everybody in Patreon, so I don't want to do too much like non-Pokemon stuff, but yeah, this is basically answering Swish's question. I would say the number one thing I see with scalping and the word being used is that it's exactly what you said, where it just is like boy cried wolf. Like, streamer cried scalper at this point. It just doesn't hold the weight that it should, because it's being used for anything people don't like. And the number one thing is, like, people act like they don't have access to water. Like Pokemon's controlling the water supply. It's like, you just don't get Pokemon cards. Like, as much as I love this and it's a livelihood for me, even how I have a visceral reaction to Chris's question about the TMBs and SSBs, it's like, it's a very deeply personal thing for me. Even with that, the fucking Pokemon cards, like, take 20% off. Like, the level that people react to this stuff, to me, is too much. I don't even disagree with the points that, like, guys doing high jump kicks in the parking lot of Costco is just completely ridiculous. 100%. Yeah, that's wrong. But when people see someone selling something on eBay and they have no idea where they got that from, did they scalp it? Did they do whatever? Did they buy it from a bot or do some dirty deal? It's like, you don't know. And ultimately, it's like the biggest issue here is that Pokemon's not printing enough. You know how all this would go away like it did before, and then the time before that, when we had the same problem happen multiple times over and over again? Just print more of it. I know it sounds easier than what can happen, like they snap it, but excuse me. The second you get more of this, let me step away from the camera because I'm getting over a cold. Apologies for, it's 4:20 out here, guys. We're not going to do a new take. We're just going to keep rolling. Yeah, basically, you're at a point now where Pokemon needs to just print more quantity, or it's never going to change. You're going to keep hearing all this constant whining, and it has become a cultural problem, I think, specifically, or maybe particularly in Pokemon, where there's too much negativity, we overvalue drama, and people just make claims without any proof, anything at all. I don't like this thing. This person said something about me I don't like. This person is doing something over here in a way I don't like. this is very rife in Pokemon. Again, why shutting it off and why I have never spent less time with Pokemon than right now. And I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I still get all the pertinent details. I get what my distributors telling me. I hear all the valuable stuff behind the scenes, that's going on. I'm not missing anything important. I just don't deal with this stuff, the noise. So anyway, glad to hear that you're adding positivity out there. I feel like things like art appreciation. I was even thinking the other day, I miss, doing like fan club cards and explaining why they're important, explaining why they're unique. What I talked about in the first question or second question of the video, just trying to broadcast that. I'm glad that's happening, but yeah, all this scalper stuff is it's such an overreaction. And the final point I'll say is criticism has never been easier. That's to your thing about the scalping and I don't like this. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like how they're saying it. Everyone pretends that they're holier than. There's no morality behind these people saying this stuff. There's no moral commitment. It's mostly narcissistic, hedonistic, just emotional impulse that they're choosing to put out publicly, that should stay inside of you. It should be a thought that dissipates and hopefully with time and maturity goes away forever. But because of this, like, get it out there, whatever, drama, we overvalue it and all that stuff. It's like this type of thing where people just dogpile on like scalping and all that. It's like, you guys aren't loyal to these businesses. You're loyal to the dollar. It's really just adults who aren't getting cards at the prices they want. That's it. That's all it is. That's when you start to hear the term scalper. You could honestly just have like a canary in the coal mine thing. When prices go up like this, scalper starts to come out. But when they stay down, no one says the word scalper. I know guys who, out of the kindness of their heart, tying into what your point, last point I promise, actually one of the guys who's in Whatnot, who I mentioned earlier, he would do this thing, and I remember we did a call, and he was like, I just try to do 20% margin or whatever it was on everything. I'm like, look, man, no good deed goes unpunished in collectibles, especially Pokemon. That margin is not going to be loyal to you, and those people who are buying from you are definitely not going to be loyal to you. I know people who sold Art Academy cards at $100 to $200 a piece. You think anyone selling them today at 10K is giving them kickback? You think anybody who was crying scalper in 2020 for Shining Fates is giving those businesses kickback from when they lowered the prices out of guilt? No, they're not. You think they're even buying from those businesses? No, because I can give you multiple examples of people who went out of business because of that exact thing. So final point here is that is not, the Pokemon community is one of the most fickle communities you can experience in life, period. When I talk about some of the stories and stuff I've experienced with real life humans who are grown adults, they just don't understand it because they're like, they've already leveled up beyond all this nonsense. So I guess what I'm getting at is the man-child definition I've just accepted within Pokemon, and it's tough because the negativity exists because the people in Pokemon, a lot of them are negative. That's really the end point here, is that why you have so much scalpage going on is because it's just people who want this product at the price they want. It's not because there's necessarily a real problem. The only real problem is Pokemon needs to print more. And the second they do, all this like drama disappears. And I get it too. Like, I get annoyed when I'm trying to buy every time I'm trying to buy a plush for somebody for a holiday, every single time, without fail, there's some drop that happens. And I'm like, I just need to get a sitting cutie. So get this Pikachu with his little like whatever backpack he's got on or his parcel bag or whatever. Get out of my face. I just need to get that Butterfree sitting cutie for a friend of mine's kid. Like, just get this out of here. So yeah, every time I try to do that, it's really tough because I just want to get this thing, and I understand the frustration if you're trying to buy that item. But the issue is that these are people who, a lot of them are just opportunists. It's money. This is a mode to money. It's a vehicle to money. A lot of those people complaining, even a lot of them want it to make the money. They're just upset they aren't the guy. There's this beautiful meme of a line of people, and it's like the person that says me in the middle, and the front says scalpers, and the back says suckers. And it's like, that's right there is the epitome, the short answer, the TLDR to all this rambling that I've done now. So yeah, that's really what it is. Anyway, appreciate your little bright light there, and you're like the other person that's in my Patreon who's doing something similar, where they do a lot of these cheaper cards at like the same rate, just trying to get the same margin, and they've done a good job of carving out a little community. So all right, moving along. I'm sorry for ranting, guys. I'm trying to not go off the deep end every time. Trico says, hey Scott, that's a lot of volatility in short day, or there is a lot of volatility in short day-to-day swings. What's your underrated, overrated prediction going for 10 years from now? Will trophy prize cards vintage be available at a lot lower than it is today? Will modern cards suffer by not having lower grades, alternatives that Vintage has, everything pulled immediately sleeved, PSA 8 to 10. Thanks. Yeah, I think that right now there's so much chaos that it's hard to believe that, for veterans, like a lot of people in here, it's easy to understand that, okay, Modern right now is being traded on sentiment. I think everybody agrees with that. But it's hard to see, will things like trophy cards still be where they are now 10 years from now? I just have a hard time believing that a lot, especially the top stuff, like Chris's question, or a lot of these cards are just so established, or they're just so well known. They have so much inertia, at least for them. Where's the cheaper option? What's that going to be in 10 years? The biggest thing to me with those particular cards, the extra copies, in my opinion, have falsely inflated them and given people false confidence, because you're reliant on those extra copies to continue, not only continue, but also in the way that they are. And I think we've already seen a shift in that. I don't think they exist today, even the way they did a few years ago, especially when Akabane was still, when he was still pumping out this stuff, when he was still making these, I don't know what else was made or found, or whatever word we want to use. So it's those type of cards are very reliant on that. So if that goes away, and I just can't imagine it being consistent 10 years from now the way it is now, and even let's say it was, the average discretionary income 10 years from now is going to be much greater. You got to remember, we're really young still. I joke about being a boomer and stuff, and we're so young compared to other markets. When I get any of those beautiful heritage ads, give them a little free shout out here. I'll look through this stuff. It's just fun to look at. But outside of Pokemon and maybe some of the movie things, I'll get these ones for stuff from the 40s, and I'm like, who's buying this? Who's buying all this stuff? But there's all these old generations that are at the twilight of their lives, or even their career, whatever it is. We're at the beginning still. We're still basically early middle evolutions, if you will. We're not even close to the end generationally. So yeah, I think that stuff like that over time it's gotta change. It's gotta have some increase, because the reasons for why it's staying the way it is, I think, are, in my opinion, this concerted, I don't know if it's concerted effort or what it is, incentive, maybe concerted incentive, if that's a phrase, where you have all this stuff coming out of Japan, all these extras, because one sale happens and they're like, oh, let me get that, I have this, let me get that, repeat that sale, I'll take that price type situation. I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know how long those extras will be there. But yeah, as for Modern card suffering, I think the problem you have with Modern that people haven't experienced yet, because it's not old enough yet, especially these newcomers, it's going to be hard to keep track of all the good cards. That's it. It already is. It's already hard to keep track of every single good card. You have this in every generation. It's not unique to Modern. It's not even a shot at Modern. It's just a statement of fact. That's just a reality we all deal with. Do we all simultaneously know the price of every single vintage card in a head? No. It's really hard to do that. I have general impressions of a lot of them, but it's really tough. And I would have to fact check a lot of them too. I'm like, is that still $100? Is that Blossom still only $100? I'll have to go look it up. So with Modern right now, I think the more that cards release, the harder it's going to be to maintain these high highs, especially when everything, like you said, just comes out at a high grade. That was the factor that balanced out that transition away, or their act ended on stage. So it's like, okay, Flash Fire is not the Flash Fire anymore. It's something else, but that's okay because it's still tough to grade. It's got some type of fundamental there. None of these are hard to grade. So when they lose their one thing, popularity, what else is going on? When they're not on stage anymore, are people still fawning over Zac Efron like they were in 2007? I don't know. I would go out and say probably not as much. Are the Jonas Brothers still? I don't know why I'm getting into 2007 stuff. Is that still the hot thing? No. Is it a zero either? No, it's not. It's not a binary. But I just don't think, if you're betting on record highs, what's making it a record high? Right now I think we can all agree a lot of Modern is popularity. 10 years from now, I would just be surprised if all of these record highs are going to continue to accelerate, especially at the pace that they're at. Certain cards will probably be fine and still continue to move, but go look at the past Modern stuff as an example. People aren't clamoring over each other for anything really past Team Up like the way they are, post Team Up. It's just not the same, especially when you go to the BC era, like the before Clout times in 2019 and back. Flash Fire is a great example. that box has sat there at a similar range for ages. For ages. You know, I still have some Flashfire boxes left, and I'm like, you guys haven't moved. Like, I could have sold this and done whatever. It's no change in price. That's not great, you know? So anyway, I think there's something there I've talked about before, and I think that that's the dilemma that Modern faces, is that when it's all eggs in one basket, when it's all just popularity, and they keep making more sets with more shiny cards, and not only more sets, but more artists, it's harder to keep track of where these, you know, cards align, where they're from all the time. I'm like, were you in this set? I can't even remember a lot of the sets that they're in, because there's so many art rares, so many secret art rares now. So yeah, that's the dilemma for Modern, and I think the dilemma for Vintage, especially prize trophy cards, is the extras. I think the extras have artificially, it's been like it's like a booster or fuel injection that no one really saw coming, because it's unpredictable. You can't really know. It's a black hole. So that's really kept those things afloat. And I just can't imagine the circumstances will stay the same, you know, 10 years from now. All right, moving along. Paul, all these have been phenomenal questions, by the way, guys. Great. I'm glad Easter got rained out, because this has been great so far. All right, last page here, we have Paul K saying, #Team Double Dip. Why do you think English 151 is performing the same or better than Japanese, even though Japanese has the exclusive Master Balls? Also, you're still picking up Unagaba, Evolutions, and Pikachu these days. What are your thoughts on them now? And personally, I'm still picking them up here and there. Thanks so much. So a couple things here. I think first, the starting point is there's more Japanese available. There's been more product printed for Japanese. At least we can say there's been more product availability. That's maybe a better distinction. It's something that you could pick up, I feel like, at any point in time. It's just a matter of, you know, do you want to pay outside the first wave? Do you want to pay $100, you know, $200 or whatever it was that first era? Now it's like, it was more reasonable, at least for a while. Where with English, it's so annoying to get that product. Not that it's exceptionally rare or anything. It's just very, very annoying to try and find it. And outside of that, if that's not good enough, you go look at the Pop Report. The Pop Report will show, I think, somewhere like 500,000 already for Japanese, 370 or something like that, 300-ish. I'd have to double check it for English, and even that's just insane. Like, just take it. I think Base Unlimited it's going to pass Base Unlimited probably. It's wild how these are like basically new sets. Wild. Anyway, so I think that's the general breakdown. Also, you can throw in that while I'm talking about accessibility, you're never going to find a Japanese box at your store physically, where I think you'll find more of them physically at a store, you know, excluding price point and scalpage premium and whatever's going on. You're still probably going to find them, you know, in the US better than you would anything Japanese. So I think that's something else that plays a role. You're going to see them stream more. Although with that said, I've seen Japanese stuff stream more as well. Just getting into the weeds of why I think there's a discrepancy there. I think the big points are less of it graded. Also, the accessibility is frustrating. And then when you said, am I picking up Unagabas? Did I even read this? Because I immediately went 151. Are you still picking up Unagaba Evolutions and Pikachus? What are your thoughts on them now? Personally, I'm still picking them up here and there. Yeah, I think Unagabas actually aren't fully blossomed. I think there's something that is almost like the last bastion of Japanese promos. It's so depressing. It's like, why'd you guys stop? Like, just give us a little bit more. So yeah, it's something that I'm still doing casually. You know, maybe I forget about them when I do my MMRs, but I think I have some Evolutions. This is my to grade. I can just do it live here. I think I have some stuff, some Unagabas in here. These are the most recent purchases. Jesus, this is heavy. Oh boy. All right, getting the forearm workout for the day. Yeah, okay, here we go. Some of the most recent purchases. This is Unagaba Evolution, another one. So I still am buying more than I remember. Yeah, another Evolution set here. Umbreon. Oh, so a couple Umbreons. So maybe that wraps around. Yeah, okay, it's two complete sets there as well. This is all my need to grade stuff that I haven't even organized. So yeah, this is my most recent purchases are in the front here. Still doing it. I don't think they're fully blossomed. I think it's something that still has potential, but I just wish we got more of it. That's all I can say with Unagabas. I'm buying them. They're not as the Poncho Pikachus were such a dead giveaway. Dead giveaway. It's like, yep, this is good. Keep doing it. Rinse and repeat. Just, it almost got boring how good it was. So I missed that. Unagaba has some of that flavor, but it's just not as potent as the ponchos were. All right, next up we have Trico, who says, "Hey Scott, double dipping this month. Is the price point when you consider buying or buyers having diamond hands? Even if a card goes down in value, buyers aren't possible or pressed to sell." Oh, okay, I see what you mean. A lot of the trophy prize cards are still well below prices in 2021, 22, whereas a bulk of cheaper cards are rising in value, are less than 1,000 price point. I don't think all these cards are just being dumped from people who bought in 2022, but curious to your thoughts. Thanks. Yeah, I think the lower you go in price, the less incentive there is to sell unless you absolutely need to. If what I find myself doing is wishing that like illustrators would drop in price dramatically, because I'd like to get one for a binder that I'm doing, and I also don't want to feel pressure to sell. Kind of like the deal I mentioned with Chris's question that I've now probably overly referenced. Whenever he asked me about it, it's like I had to take that deal. I had to take it. But if we go back to when things just had less zeros on them, yeah, it's very easy to deny that. It's easier for me to say, no, I'm good. These mean so much to me. And at these prices, these lower prices, there's definitely no incentive to move them. However, if you are buying this stuff to make money and you bought the peak, yeah, it's frustrating. For some people, maybe they just want to wash it and move on to something else. I get that. I recently did that with some stocks, and it's just, that's more of a personal thing. That's in the infinite realm of choices. But ultimately, yeah, I think overall, generally speaking, the lower you go, the less incentive there is to sell. So naturally, I think your hands, at least for me, my wrist becomes stronger, or maybe a better analogy is it's lighter on my hands. There's less pressure to sell, at least. That's how I interpret it. When someone comes to me, let's say someone came to me with a genuine $500,000 offer. I just talked to someone hours ago who came to me with a 97 Pico offer because there was one that sold recently. And I'm like, look, your offer's fine. It's a good offer. I just don't want to take it. But if they came to me and said, look, $500,000 right now, it's just tough. That's really, really tough. That's major money. I don't care how wealthy you are. That's major, major money. So it's hard to deny that. It's easy. You're going to be, I'm sure people strap in and be like, well, denying 300 or 350 is also a lot of money, but I could still sleep at night with that. But it's getting to that point where I'm like, what do I do here? This is something where it's tough. It's a luxury problem, of course, but I'm trying to answer your question by using it as the example that once you slide the scale that way, I think there's more incentive to sell. I think it's harder to hold it. Where if I slide the scale this way, where the price is lower, it's easier for me to hold it. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or if I'm just telling you how I feel in relation to the words you typed out. But yeah, that's where I am. And I think for bulk stuff, or where you're talking about cheaper cards, it's nothing but up. I've joked like with my friends in hockey because they're like, man, you've gotten so much better as you age. I'm like, yeah, it has to go up because I started like 7 years ago, so I can't be worse than when I started. So that's where a lot of that cheap stuff is. It has more range to grow. Obviously if you're talking like energy cards and stuff, that's not what I mean, but even a decent chase card or something that has some difficulty to grade or whatever it is, a lot of those things that sit in the middle, they have more room to grow because even a random card that we can pull from vintage or mid-modern or something, yeah, if telling me today a card that's $500 can double to 1,000 in a few years, I'm not surprised by that because it's not a lot of money for most people considering it, however you want to look at that. It's like someone could really budget for that. And where if you're talking about a card that today is, maybe it's over 50K at some point, now it's down to 30 or, somewhere in there. It's like, yeah, we're talking a different animal. But to me, that's more about the cost of capital and discretionary income, kind of tying in the previous conversation about younger age and all that. It's just cheaper stuff makes more sense to me that it can grow. Again, hitting the sweet spot. I'm not trying to say that your card that has 100,000 copies or something, whatever common Komiya card is going to be the one that I use for the signature contest this year. It's not going to ever be a $500 item, but yeah, to me, I'm just not surprised by the cheaper things because it's cost of capital. All right, next up we have Connor who says, hey Scott, sorry for the non-Pokemon question. Are U.S. economic trends mainly referring to the devaluation of the dollar, global concern over U.S. economic decision-making affecting anything you do, whether it's for your business or personal investments? Not intending to make it political, just curious to hear your analysis of the times and what you're doing differently, if anything. Thanks. I'm actually glad you asked this because I don't want people to shy away from non-Pokemon stuff. I don't mind doing it. The only reason I'm hesitant is because I'm probably too much of a people pleaser, and I don't want to push anyone away who's here just for Pokemon or collectibles. But yeah, luckily I'm not a political person. I'm very moderate. If I had to fill in the blank on what I am politically, moderate. That's the best I can do. And I think what's going on right now is just pure chaos. I've never experienced anything like this. I mean, I'm only 37, so experienced a lot of financial recessions. I think a lot of the millennials have. We got a lot under our belt, but what I've done from this personally is just a lot of it's wait and see still. I feel like a lot of it's like picking petals or blustering. I'm hoping this is like a negotiation tactic with all these tariffs and we get to like a mutual trade with everybody where it's like, okay, right now is just the blustering and then we're going to actually do something appropriate or reciprocal. I'm hoping that's the outcome. What I've done personally is I've cut a lot of my investments that are too dependent on like the NASDAQ. Like for example, I had some income producers like QYLD, for example. I got rid of that thing entirely. Can't stand that stock. I was basically waiting for that thing to get to a point where I felt okay letting go of it, where I felt like I was enough in the green. And it's just stuff like that where I'm like, I'm tired of this. I'd rather throw it into like a SGov or something that's going to pay me 4%, 5% pretty consistently. So that's what I've done. I've basically been looking for safe havens. Also, because my perspective in general is more about maintaining wealth or wealth management. Preservation is the word I'm looking for. Doing that instead of just trying to get the most money. I don't want to do that part. I don't want to do most money because that means more risk. I don't want that. I want more wealth preservation, very incremental growth. That's all I care about at this point moving forward. You know, knock on wood, hopefully till I'm 100, level 100 or beyond. That's really it. So that's what I've done. But yeah, I don't know what it's going to do for Pokemon. We've had some threads here and there on E4, and I think what it will do is we'll have to make an adjustment. What I'm really curious to see is if the 24% or anything sticks. I'm really curious to see what Japanese boxers are going to do stateside, because I don't know how you're going to get that in. I don't know if you're going to pull an Apple where you like stuff an Anna Airlines plane full of boxes and just YOLO it over, because I don't know how you're going to keep those prices the way they are now. I think there's a lot of international trade that we take for granted because we have no tariffs. I don't know if take for granted is the right word, but basically we really utilize it because we don't have any additional fee. Where what will happen for me is I'll just have to be a little more aware. It's kind of like a buyer's premium. That's the way to say it. It's like a buyer's premium. I have to be aware that this buyer's premium is coming in now, you know, on all my Japanese stuff. And I just have to factor that in. I think that's really what it comes down to. That's the non-sexy answer is you just got to factor it in. I don't know who it's, I think it's going to hit those people the most who are more margin dependent, who are trying to take stuff from Japan, sell it stateside. That's probably going to be the people who are affected the most by it. But yeah, I hope, to answer your question, I hope we get to like reciprocal tariffs with people. Reciprocal is a focus. It's got to be that. You know, this blustering and stuff. And I agree, there's something to, you know, there's legitimate points that are being made that are probably being abused in negotiation. I agree that some of these countries probably have been taking advantage of us to some degree. You know, I don't think it's fair how some of these auto industries, they don't charge their citizens or whatever it is, this fee or whatever you want to say, this duty, and yet we're probably the same level of customer, you know, dollar wise, but for some reason we're being charged this additional fee, not including like shipping and all the processing aspects, just that for some reason we get hit with this thing. It's like, come on now, like we're buying the same amount as the guys over here, like just let us get that same deal. So I think those type of things I get, you know, I think there's nuance there that's true, but I hope that we get to some moderation, like some type of reciprocal thing happening, especially with our neighbors like Canada and Mexico and stuff. I hope that all balances out. But yeah, that's where I am with it. I try, again, just like with Pokemon, I try not to read every single thing that happens all the time. I don't think it's healthy right now, because, and like it's shown, a lot of it isn't even real. Like we say one thing, it gets pulled back, you know, this thing gets happened, and it's like every day is picking petals. Like, come on. So yeah, that's what I want. I think how it affect Pokemon is just people would have to adjust it like a buyer's premium. I think if it sticks, if tariff sticks at some point, you just have to see it as like a buyer's premium, and that's probably the best way moving forward. All right, Bob the Builder back again saying live selling is the new Gen Z easy money trend, here to stay. Milk it while it's still hot. Say good things about Whatnot and live selling. Grandpa, also, what's your favorite card from the Point Salad deck? Don't know what that is. Also, do you think Glory of Team Rocket box will fall in price? Yes, it will. I already see it dropping to 120, but even that seems high. Okay, getting a little Patreon exclusive, hot off the presses. There's going to be another print of Glory Team Rocket. I already did my pre-order, have it in the MMR notes. We'll talk about any more information I get, but yeah, so I'm not surprised about that. The part about, what'd you say here? Say something good about Whatnot. I have plenty of people in my Patreon who are in Whatnot. I think it's a great platform. It's not for me. I'm too old for it. not even just age-wise. I probably do fine. I probably have the things that would do well for live streaming. Take that for what it's worth, but I just don't like it. It's not my thing. The thing is I don't care. That's really what it is. I just don't care. I don't care to do it. More power to the people who do. It's a sweat. It's a grind. But I put those years in. I just don't want to sweat that hard anymore, to do all that. I want to sweat playing hockey or running. Like, I don't want to sweat anymore doing Pokemon. So, yeah, it's something that I think is a great option for the people who do it. I don't know. The curious question is, I don't know what I'd have done if that were around back in the day. Because I got into videos, and I never thought I'd do videos. Like, I'm here right now, and I never thought I would do this. So, yeah, I don't know if I would have done some of that. I can't bring the thing people do with the get this now and what. I can't bring that like Ken Golden energy. I just can't do it. Circa 2000 on QVC, that iconic him just absolutely sweating out those Neo starter file cards. Probably still got record prices on those. I don't know if they've crossed that line yet. Anyway, I think it's a great option for people. I think that if you're still grinding it out, you're still in that sweat phase, it's a great way. A lot of liquidity. That's a big positive. A lot of instant liquidity. Forget about Pokemon for a second. I'm always surprised how much those live streamers do. I'll see guys like sweating. There's dudes who do gushers. Like, yeah, this is my For You page. Gushers with like sour stuff added to it. And I'm like, why is this on my page? Like, did someone say this somewhere? Like, why is this here? And I'm just amazed by the people who buy this, just to me, like junk. It's like, just go to the store and get gushers. Like, but it's the sales tag. Like, these guys are selling. There's a human thing going on there. There's a parasocial thing going on there. Yeah, it's for people who really know and feel comfortable doing that. Yeah, it's great. And the liquidity is very surprising. I'm surprised by how much goes through there. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon either. I think this is just a new, it's kind of like when the internet was born, or internet purchases. And, think about that in the 90s, how newborn it was, where now it's like everybody's doing it. But it's going to be something like that, where if it's there for you if you want to do it. And it almost keeps that QVC energy alive. You just now do it online. QVC could just kill it online if they wanted to. They could do a lot of that. Or they could partner with a lot of these young people to get some young blood. So anyway, yeah, it's something that it's not going to go away anytime soon. All right, last few questions. Mr. Garrison says, hey, Scott, no questions here. I'm leaving Patreon for the time being. Take care. Some real life stuff. Just want to say I appreciate all you do and keep up the good work. I'm sure I'll be back someday. Wishing you and yours the best, Mr. I appreciate that, man. And I completely understand it. Completely get it. One day I will be leaving Patreon too. So take it easy. And whenever you want to come back, the door is always open. And I appreciate the support. I'll see you on E4. You're a pretty regular poster on E4. So, and if I ever venture out to a convention, I'd probably see you there too. But that's like you probably have a better chance of seeing me on Whatnot than at a convention at this point. But anyway, glad you decided to share that. All right. Next up, we have Jimmer, who says, Bonjour, Scott. When putting together a binder, have you ever realized you put a card in the wrong slot and had to move a ton of cards in one spot or two? Over time, I moved my 74 English Zapdos card labels over one single spot after missing fourth print and don't want to feel alone right now. Also, species binders collections have been my favorite thing to lurk on E4 recently. Have you ever put a species binder? And if so, which mon? Go Leafs. Go, Jimmer. Yeah, dude, I want to see the Leafs game tonight. Actually, one of the guys I play with on my men's team, his brother's playing now for the Leafs, or he did play the last couple games. So I hope he gets a spot tonight. Anyway, as for your question, of course I've done this with binders. I used to do Pokédex binders 1 to 151, where I would take every new card that came out for that species. So it's kind of answers both your questions. Every single card. This is how much I collected back then. Every single card that came out for each Pokemon, I would put in Pokédex order. Every single card. Now, caveat, I wouldn't do, if you had, like, let's say a first edition jungle, I wouldn't do first edition then unlimited. I wouldn't do the reverse holo everything. I would just do one art of, like, the set stuff. But if it had a Japanese exclusive promo, it was going in there. Whatever it was. I have a Mew EX play still in its original seal. I have a Red Cheeks E3 in its original seal just sitting in a binder from, like, almost 20 years ago. That probably have indents now because of that. So, yeah, I did that. And why I'm saying that is because I would like leave spaces in the binder because it was never complete. And I would try to leave those spaces so I wouldn't have to move every single card. So basically anytime a new set would come out, I'd have to like, shift all this stuff around. And so I would leave spaces after every species. That way I could just put a new one in. And then it would get to the point where I'm like, okay, now I got to get a new binder, and I would just put everything in a new binder. I did a lot of binder management in the beginning. So yeah, I've done that a lot. And the species stuff, I really was doing all of them, especially from Kanto. I was doing all of them, probably about till 2010. So if I go through those binders, which I still have them, I could probably have almost every single card for those species up until about 2010. Pretty much every single one guaranteed. Because I was just doing it like clockwork. Like I put everything into Pokemon during that time. So I was buying every single card. And of course, there weren't as many cards, so it was more doable. But yeah, I was doing a species of everything. I did Mewtwo a little more, or I prioritized Mewtwo more than the others, but every other one still got it. I'm sure there's like an info. No, I was gonna joke and say like an info pack Blossom or something, but I know that one's in there. Yeah, even the obscure stuff, I would go for everything. But it was easier back then. 2010, think about, you had like 60 new promo cards and all of Heart Gold Soul Silver. So it's easier to keep track of stuff back then. But yeah, that's what I did. I would do Pokédex binder, every single species of 151, every single card for each one, especially every single art. And yeah, that's it. And I had a rule too, which I haven't looked at those binders in a while. If it got put in there, I wouldn't take it out. So there's like some mint gold stars, mint, you name it. You name whatever it is. Because back then, this stuff wasn't as damaged. So, and a lot of it was new too. Like the new chase cards, just bought them new, and threw them in a binder. So anyway, there you go. There's a little story time. All right, last but not least, you have Rob Stark here with a two-parter. Hey Scott, what's your strategy when purchasing during a boom cycle? For example, I've been slowly picking up PS10 Japanese Pikachu exclusives for my personal collection over the last few years, but I found in the last few months, every card on my list jumped significantly in price in such a short period of time. It's almost like one of the listings was doubled in price and all the other sellers followed suit. Do you have any certain way of navigating this, i.e. how do you tell if this is a new price floor for the card or something that will fall back once the attention dies down? Also, double dipping this month with one extra question. I was just listening to one of your old videos from last year, and you got me going down the rabbit hole on postcards. Can you give me a classic SM Pratt rant about them? What are you looking for when purchasing them? Condition, year. Thanks, as always, King of the North. So yeah, in reverse order, postcards, basically what I look for is unique art. Like with, Jimmer's question about binders, I would go for unique art just above anything. I love it so much. It's like the catnip for why I collect. I just love it. So that's what I go for. And within that, probably more like the Southern Island vibe with like Fukuyama or these people who do that old hand-drawn, just beautiful style. I just love that nostalgic style, like the gold cards or whatever it was, the Pokemon Center exclusives, that type of stuff. I just love it. I can't get enough of it. I do also see like old Himeno works I like. Anything from that original era I pick up. And I probably slow it down 2001-ish, somewhere in there. And I'll see certain things like Komiya comes to mind, who did some recent stuff. Anything that just I think is good, that I like the art. That's really it. The focus is just art and unique art more specifically. I do think those original ones I mentioned still are very, very cheap for what they offer. I feel like that's something that if you did I'm not suggesting this, but if you did like a coordinated buyout, it's just so cheap. Like, look at everything else. People would strategize with these cards at $500, all these modern chase cards that have seemingly infinite amounts of copies, where that stuff's 25 years old, even if there's some that come out of the woodwork. To me, it feels like a very under-optimized market is what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, that's what I would say from both an emotional and practical perspective. What you're talking about, if I have any certain way of navigating, this sudden increase in price, and how do you tell a new price for a card versus something that will fall back down? You mentioned Japanese Pikachu exclusives. There's a saying, don't bet against Charizard, and I would say that's true for Pikachu as well. I don't think that a lot of these Japanese Pikachus, especially the ponchos and high grades, are just going to go... I just don't know where that quantity is going to come from. Now, there's a different animal between, Mario Pikachu versus, let's say, even a Mega Tokyo Pikachu. I think they're both good cards. But a Mega Tokyo is going to be slightly more available, and it's going to have something that will probably be there for a while in a way that Mario Pikachu won't at that same price point. And this is getting way into the weeds because, even stuff like the Pikados. Pikados is older. This is older than the Mario Pikachu release. But, yeah, it's one of those where it's how many people decide to take these and throw them into a closet and then just pull them out 10 years later? How many people are doing that? Especially in 2015. That was not a normal thing to do. Even when I was doing it, I'm like, I bought these, strap in. I bought these 2015 when they dropped, $20 a piece. Not the boxes, the individual cards, $20 a piece. I remember buying like 20 of them at Worlds. Every year I would do that. I'd stock up on like one card that I thought was really good, and I wish I would have held more of them, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But ultimately, my point is that the fundamentals of stuff like this, a lot of people dunk too hard, I think, on the Ponchos, especially these guys and Mario Pikachu and a lot of the full art ones that I know for sure their release was pretty much a one and done. That type of thing is less, I think, has a lower chance of decreasing. Also, what I've done lately with my Scream cards is I've increased the prices. Someone came to me recently with a Pikachu and said, hey, would you do, it was a PSC10, would you do off eBay? So I looked at my price and I was like, wait, I'm the lowest guy on eBay? No. And it was actually a great interaction because they were like, hey, I saw you had it at this price. And I was like, yeah, I'm increasing the price because I realize it's the lowest. I don't want to sell this aggressively. And I even said, look, there's another guy who has that same price. If you want to go try him, maybe, because that was the last person at 5K and everybody else is at 7,500. So I'm like, yeah, this is the obvious answer, is that I'm going to move it up. And even if it comes back down to 5K, I don't care. I've already done this dance. I already did this with Screams, where we went up and down, and look where we are now. It's like, I don't care. The Scream cards, to me, that's an S tier design. They have enough fundamentals going for them. I'm not really concerned market conditions. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but basically I think there's a delineation between cards like those where, yeah, sure, okay, this new increase or new influx, like I think too many people want to go this full cynical route and think it's 2023 again. I don't agree with that. I don't think we're in 2023 right now. I think this increase is the most widespread one we've ever experienced. And I don't want to say it's like just organic or not organic, but I would also say it's probably one of the most organic increases we've ever experienced. That doesn't mean this stuff's going to stay forever where it is. I'm sure there's plenty of cards right now that are highly speculative, but name just the one category I know we can point to ultra modern or whatever, but it's not limited to that. I mean, I have stuff on my desk I got to ship out that's like this guy. This is a 1998, or like I have stuff, what I ship out, or I have another card that's not even here that I need to go get to ship out from storage, like Chikorita Toad Out deck that I think I just saw somewhere. Yeah, this. I graded one of these decks and someone bought a PSC10. In fact, I sold some of these to Patreon members. A little shout out to a couple of Patreon members who bought these from me. So my point is, you're getting stuff selling from the beginning to end right now. And I just wouldn't put too much stock in there being like a significant retrace on everything. I think when you're looking particularly at Japanese exclusive Pikachus, that's a wide net. And if you're going to focus that, to me, that for some reason, I think Poncho, I don't know where that heavy supply is going to come from. I don't doubt that there can be retraces. There's always market fluctuation, but I'm that person. I bought so many. I bought 30 of the Festas 2015. I bought like 40 of the Lucario Pikachu ones. I bought like, I don't know how many of the Mega Tokyos. I bought 20 of these guys. Like, I was buying this stuff like crazy, and I was like rare. That was not normal. That was not a normal thing. So anyway, I don't know if I've answered it whatsoever, but in navigating times like this, I think what I do, final point, is that I look at my cards and assess each one. I'm highly, highly meticulous. I'm constantly thinking it's a problem. And I will analyze everything and what I think it is. So like what I said with the 97 Pika, for example, it fits your description of Pikachu exclusive. I remember when that person came to me, hours ago, and I was like, yeah, that's a fair offer, but 500 is where I'd really have to, that would be the tipping point. Why? Because it's the first ever trophy card. It's a card that I told them, I was like, I can probably reacquire most cards, and this one I don't think I could. That's the hardest one to reacquire. So going through all that, I'm like, yeah, I'll just choose to hold this, even though you're offering me a metric ton of money, just to continue holding it. And, dialing down things like Scream, what I just said, where I'm like, yeah, I'll continue holding this one. But, there's certain cards, like if Mega Togyo keeps trending, I do have multiples of those. And this is what I mean about everything's a case study. Like, because I have multiples of those, I don't mind letting go of some. I even have multiples of Scream, but I just still, going deeper into the analytics. Like, I have multiples of both of those, but I'm not as inclined to do Screams. So I can't reacquire them. The cost of capital is higher. I don't want to go down that road anymore. I feel like that's more of a finite path. So I'm going to continue to hold those, especially because I think they're S tier. With Mega Tokyo or something else comparable, I can reacquire that easily. I know places where I can buy up stock if I want to. This is my life all the time. We would be here indefinitely if we analyze every single card. So yeah, that's what I do. I analyze everything case by case. My mind is always going with this stuff. And what I do broadly is that in moments like this, I try to analyze why I think things are moving the way they are. Like I said, I think it's pretty widespread. I can't find a corner right now that isn't doing fine, at least, knock on wood. Yeah, it's tough to really say. I don't have a cynical thing to say for the market. I think the market's doing fine. It's just the community part of it, or whatever you want to say, is not as good. It's not aligned. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm just, everything's case by case. I think that if it makes sense to sell right now, especially if you stocked up on certain things, kind of like what I was saying with Scream versus other cards, do what's best for you. A bird in the hand, that's another perspective I would give. A lot of my first edition base stuff, which might answer your question, I've had some first edition base stuff for a long time. My commons, uncommons, I have multiples of. I'm just taking bird in the hand. I don't care if it's maximum price. I have cards like 20 PS10s of Pidgey or Rattata. If someone wants to give me whatever it is, going rate for them at $300, wherever it was I sold the last one for, that's fine. Whatever Abra was, $350 or something like that, that's okay. I got 20 more. That's fine. I don't need to get maximum, possible price on that. And I'm way beyond. Those are all free money now. So I don't know if I'm just ranting way too long because you're the last question here, but everything is case by case, and bird in the hand is a perspective to take right now for a lot of people. But after that, consider, what are you going to do with that money? Everything is, all this, again, this infinite realm of choices. There are wrong answers in the sense that, like, if you buy an energy card at $1 million, it's probably not ever be $1 million again. Then again, you might be able to create the market of that and say it is this thing. I don't know. 30K Bulbasaur didn't do it, so I wouldn't recommend doing $1 million energy. But yeah, it's one of those where, like, when you're deep in those analytics, you end with a choice. It's got to be whatever works best for you. And I hope I answered that to some degree. It's tough because it's such a good question. I go on forever about it, but yeah, that's the ranting that comes through when you ask me about what I do. So there it is, guys. Again, apologies for a little camera break there. It's been a wild month. We got nonstop rain, nonstop allergies, nonstop whatever. My immune system is like Ken Sugimori has a better immune system than I do, especially right now. So can't thank you guys enough. You really made this Easter very pleasant because of that weather making me pee in the Great White House. So I really appreciate the questions. Always don't feel bashful to ask anything. I know there's a lot of new lurkers and old lurkers, but anything that's on your mind, feel free to ask. I always enjoy doing this. It's such a breath of fresh air. This is like the most intimate I ever get with like any of these videos. I love it. So can't thank you guys enough just from an emotional perspective alone. It's so much fun. Yeah, that's it. I'll stop being sappy now. If you want to consign anything, message me whenever. If you do want to buy any of these or sealed stuff, the worst case scenario is I just say no, but I even have a couple rocket cases I thought about offering eventually. Yeah, just sealed stuff is easier to go through Patreon. Guaranteed, authentic. It's just much less stress than going into the Wild West eBay. I had a guy, by the way, a little bonus round here. I shared on E4 who was like, hey, these look resealed. And I look at his feedback. He has like 90%, 80% feedback or some awful feedback. And I'm like, what? These look real sealed. Are they resealed? I'm like, man, like the internet say is wild. I'm just like, what is this big brain strategy that's going on here? So anyway, yeah, I bought all my stuff direct back in the day. It's just easier to deal this way. If that's something you want to do, message me. If you want to consign, message me. And if you want to ask a question, type it in the MMR that's coming out in about a couple weeks. That's pretty much it, guys. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy Easter if you celebrate it. And you know the limit I feel. Till next time.